Chapter 18. They spoke little on the long, bumpy wagon trip back to Margincourt. Drew and her father had freed the surviving people from their connections with their doubles, Drew's father assuring her that, since the doubles weren't mature, cutting the connection would have destroyed them. Drew's father was in a hurry to get back to Margincourt to see what mischief had occurred there. "You're going to tell me to kill him, aren't you?" Drew asked as they rounded a curve in the road and she could see Margincourt in front and just above them finally. She'd been working up the nerve to ask him the question for most of the trip. She felt like he knew it too, but was not going to let her get by just giving her the answer. She was going to have to ask the question first. "Yes," he said it without hesitation. He was probably defending himself. Gerald must have attacked him. Possible, but he didn't need to kill Gerald to protect himself. He wouldn't know. "You wouldn't let me train him in how to do that stuff. It's not fair, Father." "Fair has nothing to do with anything. If you haven't learned that already, then it's time that you did." They rode along in silence for another long while, listening to the horses' hooves clopping on the road. "Shouldn't I be able to sense him by now?" she asked. "I believe so, unless he's figured out how to mask his power somehow. You haven't taught him that, have you?" "I've only taught him what you let me teach him, nothing else, and you never mentioned something like that when we talked about it." "I'll take your word for it," Drew's father said as they drew near Margincourt, and the Inklings and humans who were working the gate started pulling the thick ropes to raise the portcullis. "But the fact remains, you want me to kill him. Immediately. The second you lay eyes on him. You are not to speak with him or allow him to speak with you. If you don't destroy him, I will, and then I will need to punish you for disobeying me. Is that understood?" "Understood," Drew said. She thought she did a good job of not letting him know how close she was to tears. He still would know, she felt, and she wondered if he even cared. If he did, he was much better at hiding his feelings about it than she was. They crossed a bridge that extended over the deep moat, the sounds of the hooves made changing from the hard clopping to a hollower version as the wagon went through the gate, the Inklings and the humans lowering the portcullis behind the wagon. "I still don't sense him," Drew said. "Neither do I." He sounded concerned, and Drew hoped he was more worried about locating Penny than noticing how relieved she was that maybe Penny had somehow left Margincourt. "What do we do if he's gone?" Drew asked. "We look for him. He must be found and dealt with, Drew." "How would he get out, anyway?" Drew asked as he tugged on the reins, guiding the horses towards the stables, where a couple of stable boys waited to take care of them. "I would think that Gerald unlocked the door to his rooms. He would have had access to the key." "But why would he do that? It doesn't make any sense at all." "I know, it doesn't at first glance. There is deceit piled upon deceit here. Our enemy is both powerful and cunning. It's almost like the whole thing with the Orthosaur was just to get us out of Margincourt," Drew said. Her father snapped his fingers. "That's it exactly. I thought that this was designed to be an attack on us, but what if it was just a ruse to allow Gerald to approach Penny? That does require some thought." "But why attack Penny? Gerald didn't even know him. Nobody did but us." "Apparently there is someone else out there who does know about him and considers him a threat." He pulled the reins, stopping the horses outside the stables. They climbed down and the stable boys came out to unhitch the horses and take them back to the stables. "Or they were hoping to get him to help them, and he turned them down," Drew said. "Either way, perhaps we'll know more after we see what awaits us in Penny's rooms." Drew stood over the body of the immature arthosaur that was pretending to be Gerald on the floor of Penny's rooms. Her father stood behind her. "He's not here," he said. "I know," Drew said. She knelt next to the scorched body and reluctantly reached out to touch it. "Why isn't it all ash?" she asked. She stood up and turned towards him. "When he killed before, there was almost nothing left of the body. This one has a lot left." "I don't know," he said. "A more important question is, where is he now?" "You can't find him? I thought you had him tagged." "I do, but I can't sense him. He must be very far away." "Or he's found the tag and removed it," Drew said, turning back, looking over the room. "That is an alarming thought." Drew was exploring the room with her mind, and she could tell her father was doing the same. "Do you feel that?" she asked. "The closet." He walked over to the closet door and opened it. It looked the same as it always had, full of clothes for Penny, with a few of his favorite shoes, pants, and shirts missing, Drew noticed. "There was a lot of power used here recently," Drew said. "I can still feel it like the ashes of a fire." "Yes, I think we figured out why the body wasn't completely destroyed as well. He'd been using his power for something and didn't have enough left to completely destroy the immature Arthosaur." "But why did the fake Gerald even come in here anyway?" Drew asked. "It's almost as if it came here for the specific purpose of doing something to Penny and wanted us out of the way while it did so." "But what would it want from Penny? How did it even know about him?" "That is a good question. I think I can answer part of it, though. Think about it. What were we planning to do when we found Penny?" "Destroy him," Drew said, "because he'd used his power." "I think we can safely assume he did that because the fake Gerald attacked him. But why? If it knew about him, it also had to know that it would not have stood a good chance against one of Penny's raw power. I think this creature has accomplished its goal in coming here. Penny would know his life would be in danger once we discovered what he'd done. He'd have no choice but to flee. I think the entire reason for all of this is to get Penny out of Margincourt." "Any ideas as to why?" Drew asked. "Obviously, someone somewhere has a use for him. We need to find out who. I think until we do, that should be our top priority." "Yes," Drew said, kneeling back by Gerald's body again, closing her eyes and using her power. She could feel the results of the blast Penny had used, but that was all. "What did he do in the closet?" she asked. "I think that's how he escaped." "What have you taught him exactly?" Drew stood up. "Only what you told me I could teach him, nothing else." "Are you sure?" "Yes. Why don't you believe me?" "Because it appears our Penny used his power to create his own Walk of Worlds." Chapter 19. Drew and her father stood in Penny's closet for a long while, both of them using their power to gently probe the remnants of Penny's now departed Walk of Worlds. "Do you have a sense as to where he could have gone?" Drew's father asked. "Maybe," Drew said. "We can't just use ours to go after him?" "We could, but we would have a lot more work to do to find him, I think. If we can recreate his, it will make us start out much closer." "Maybe close enough for you to detect the tag you put on him?" Drew asked. "Possibly." "You can sense it from another world?" "If it's near enough to me, yes." "If it's that strong, he probably sensed it and got rid of it," Drew said. "That's possible." He turned and walked out of the closet, Drew following. He closed the door, stepping back and extending a hand towards it, palm facing the door, lowering his head and closing his eyes. Drew could feel his power surging and knew that he was concentrating, manipulating the area behind the door, and she could feel it following the remnants of Penny's own working like water filling cracks. After a long while, he stepped back. "Let's go," he said, reaching forward and opening the door. It looked the same as her father's, Drew thought, as they set foot on the path that had sprung into being behind Penny's closet door. Same shining path leading off between oversized planets and flickering stars everywhere. I still can't sense him anywhere, her father said. Where do we start? Drew asked. Just follow the path for now. They set off, and Drew could feel her father searching for Penny with his power. Drew was wondering what she would do if they actually found him. She wasn't sure when it came down to it that she would be able to bring herself to kill him. Of course, considering how powerful Penny apparently was, she may not be able to kill him. She glanced around, enjoying the views of the world they were passing through. One was full of creatures outlined in light, fairies, and other beautiful creatures playing among trees and flowers. She was tempted to stop and explore that world a little further, but her father wanted to continue, impatient to find and deal with Penny before he'd done any more damage. They came to a place where the path forked, twisting off in two directions. Mr. Winston knelt at the place where the path divided, touching it with his fingertips. I don't get a sense as to which direction he may have gone, he said, looking at her. Drew knelt beside him, attempting to get her own sense of which direction to take. Me neither, she said. We will need to split up, it seems, her father said. I will take this fork. He nodded towards the one that started to the right. You take the other. If you sense him, find him and destroy him. Do not speak to him or allow him to speak to you. The decision has been made. Do you understand? Yes, I understand, Father. Good. Can you find your way back home? Yes, I can, she said. What if I don't find him, or if you find him? Let's give it a day. You can search many worlds if you try. If you haven't found him by then, we'll need to develop some sort of strategy to locate and destroy him. Okay, Drew said. They both stood, her father starting out on the right fork. Drew, he called to her before he was too far along to be seen or heard. Yes, Father. Be careful. It is better if he doesn't see you coming. Yes, Father, Drew said before setting out down her own path. Drew had only been walking for a few minutes when she started to sense Penny. She debated pausing, turning and going back to get her father, who was probably not all that far away yet, but decided instead to follow the scent herself. It led to another world. The place where she'd left the path was grassy, with trees here and there. It was night, and there was a big quarter moon in the sky. She could hear night insects singing, night birds making their calls, and she could feel a couple of bats flying around. The trace of Penny grew stronger, and she knew she was getting closer to him. She readied herself, summoning her power so that it would be ready in an instant. She startled a deer, a buck with a big rack atop its head, and he dashed away, leaping over a hedge. She could feel Penny's presence there where the deer had been munching on a plant with red flowers. There, on the ground, buried in the footprint from the deer, was a small red jewel. She could feel Penny's presence most strongly there, and she reached down and picked it up, closing her hand around it, touching it gently with her power. Suddenly, she felt she wasn't alone. She turned and Penny was standing behind her. Don't, Penny said, holding up a hand as Drew stopped herself before unleashing the power she had ready. I'm not really here, Drew, he said. Where are you? Drew asked. She reached out with a hand instead of her power and tried to touch him, her hand going right through him. He was not lying. Even though she could see him, he wasn't actually there. The jewel was linking her mind to his. I'm far away. I figured how to do all this myself, how to make this path, how to make this jewel to talk to you, how to make sure you'd find it. He told you to kill me, didn't he? Yes, Drew said. What happened, Penny? He attacked me. I don't know why. I defended myself. That's what I thought, Drew said. But your father wants to kill me anyway, doesn't he? He's not even interested in hearing my side of it. Yes, Drew said. He also thinks this was some kind of ploy to get by somebody to get you to leave Margincourt. It probably was, Penny said, but it was just what I needed. There's a lot out there that he's not letting you see. Even he has only begun to understand just what your power can do. What do you mean? You can create your own worlds. I figured out a lot over the past little while. Little while? You've only been gone a few hours, Drew said. Time flows faster where I am. It's been months since I've seen you from your point of view. Where are you? Drew asked again. A place where I can think, experiment, learn. The things I've seen, what I've learned, Drew, you don't even understand all the things you can do. You especially, you are more powerful than he is, a lot more. So, there are things we're not supposed to do, and there are reasons we're not supposed to do them, Drew said. Whoever came up with those rules was afraid somebody would be more powerful than them. I've discovered something else, too. We can make ourselves more powerful. That's not possible. You only have so much power. You can't add to it. Remember Kula? How he wanted to add my power to his own? Kula wasn't human, and he would add your power to his by consuming you. We can't do that. Still, it's possible. Kula got me to thinking about it, and I figured out a way to do it. Penny, please. I'm giving you the chance. Come join me. Together we can change the entire universe. That's crazy. You know I can't do that. Yes, you can. You can come to me right now. Join me. Father will always be able to find me. No, he won't. I can make it so he'll never find you unless you want him to. In any case, I can't, Penny. So you'll kill me if you find me then. Yes, you know I will. Father has told me to do it, and I will not disobey him. What has he ever done for you other than torture you, abuse you, cause you pain? He did all that because he had to, Drew said. That's what he tells you, but it's not necessary, Penny said. I'm the only friend you've ever had, and he wants you to kill me. What does that tell you? He doesn't have any choice, Drew said. She could feel tears running down her cheeks. Please, Penny. What do you want me to do? Come to you so you can destroy me? I don't know, Penny. You wouldn't be able to. I will do you a favor, though. Something's coming. Something that doesn't have anything to do with me. Mr. Winston doesn't know about it. Nobody does, except for me. It'll destroy humanity, and neither of you are strong enough to stop it. But you can? Drew asked. I have an idea. Having you be a part of it would be a big help. Then come back with me. Let me talk to Father. I'm sure I could change his mind. No, Penny said. Even if he knew he wouldn't do that. He'd be sure he could handle it himself, and he'd be wrong. Penny, Drew, I want you to be on my side when this thing comes. You'll hear from me again, so you'll still have a chance. Okay? Will you think about it? Penny, But she was talking to herself. The connection was dead, and Penny was gone. Hello, this is J. Franklin Evans. Thank you for listening to this episode of Stories That Suck. Did it suck? Let me know. Be sure to like and subscribe.